Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today. And this one you sent in is interesting.
Oh, yeah.
President Uchtdorf's three sisters talk. I
Yeah.
remember this one.
Mm,
It's about those sisters, right?
yeah.
Those like totally different ways of looking at life.
Yeah, their outlooks.
But to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
that whole like choosing joy thing always kind of felt a little too simple for me.
Oh, interesting.
Like, is it really?
Yeah.
Is it really that easy?
I think that's
She's out.
a really good point because actually Uchtdorf himself kind of acknowledges that in the talk.
Does he?
He says, this isn't about just ignoring the hard stuff or
All right. Yeah.
slapping on a fake smile and pretending everything's okay.
Hmm.
What's so interesting about this talk is
Yeah.
that that's addressed mainly to women in the church.
Okay.
But he uses this story, this really relatable story, to get at some pretty deep truths about human nature.
Human nature. Okay, so how does the story go again? It's been a while.
Okay, so you've got these three sisters,
Yeah.
and they each represent a different way of, approaching life.
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to think of them less as, specific people.
Right.
And more as, mindsets
Oh, okay.
that we all encounter.
Got it.
Maybe even within ourselves sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Plus-
Okay, so walk me through them. Who's our first sister?
Right, so sister one.
Okay.
She is the one who's perpetually stuck in this negativity loop.
Oh.
Everything is a slight.
Oh, I know a sister one.
Right, like she's always feeling overlooked or offended or,
Yeah.
like the world is out to get her.
Yeah, she surrendered her happiness to everything outside of her.
That's exactly right.
Ugh. I know people like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like they want to be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
But Uchtdorf wouldn't just present a caricature.
Right.
There's got to be a deeper...
Right, it can't just be don't be sad.
Yeah.
There's got to be something more to it.
Hmm.
And he uses this really strong line. He says, "Why should you surrender your happiness to someone or a group of someone's?
Ooh.
Who cares very little about you or your happiness?"
Okay, wait.
Mhm.
Hold up. Isn't that a little obvious?
Okay.
Like, of course we shouldn't let other people
Right.
decide if we're happy or not.
Yeah.
I feel like there's something more nuanced
Exactly.
that he's trying to say.
He's not just talking about avoiding toxic people,
Right.
although that is important.
Yeah.
It's more about where we place our sense of worth.
Oh, yeah.
If we're constantly looking outside of ourselves for validation,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to be like sister one
Right.
and fall into that victim mentality.
Oh, this reminds me of,
Yeah.
like how much emphasis we put on social media now.
Oh, totally.
Like everyone is trying to present this perfect life.
Hmm.
And it's easy to feel like you don't measure up,
Right. And he doesn't explicitly talk about social media in the talk.
Okay.
Because this talk came out, before it was as big as it is now.
Right.
But the principle
Mhm.
is so relevant,
I see that.
right? He emphasizes remembering that we are children of God,
Yeah.
and that's our core identity.
Yeah.
Not what other people say about us, not how many likes we get.
Right.
You know?
So it's not about don't be sad.
Right.
It's about finding
Yeah.
that source of worth that can't be shaken
Exactly.
by anything around you.
It's about that inner strength
Yeah.
that allows us to choose joy even when things are really hard.
Okay, so that's sister one.
Mm-hmm.
What about sister two?
Okay.
She's the angry one, right?
Yeah, sister two.
Mm-hmm.
She's fueled by resentment,
Oh. Okay.
always blaming other people for her problems.
Oh.
It's
Yeah.
the world is against me,
Yeah.
kind of mentality.
Too close for comfort some mornings.
Right.
But seriously,
Yeah.
what's the deeper message here?
Right.
Is he just saying don't be angry?
I think it's more about... Okay.
How easily we can misinterpret other people's motives.
Oh, okay.
Even when they seem totally opposite to our own.
Okay.
He talks about a study
Okay.
where they asked these conflicting groups.
Mm.
Think about Palestinians and Israelis, or even Republicans and Democrats here.
Okay. I'm listening.
They asked them about their actions,
Okay.
why they were doing what they were doing,
Mm-hmm.
and both sides said that they were acting out of love.
Oh, wow.
But they said that their opponents were driven by hate.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Isn't that,
Yeah.
it's kind of a scary reminder of how easy it is
Right.
to demonize people that we disagree with.
And that's where he brings in that really powerful
Right.
example about 20th century Germany.
Right. And how demonizing certain groups
Mm-hmm.
led to, just horrific violence and
Mm-hmm.
tragedy.
Okay, so
No.
if Sister 1 is about,
Mm-hmm.
like, misplaced worth.
Sister 2 is about this dangerous judgment
Yeah.
that we put on others.
Right.
But how we break out of that?
That's where it gets really challenging.
Okay.
Because Uchtdorf brings in what might seem like an impossible concept.
Oh, lay it on me.
Kill your enemy.
Whoa, hold on.
Right?
Love your enemies. That's a tall order.
Yeah.
Is he really saying
Mm-hmm.
we have to be best friends with everyone who wrongs us?
I think it's important to understand what he means by love in this context.
Right.
He's not saying that we have to condone harmful actions or pretend like disagreements don't exist.
Right.
It's more about choosing to act with compassion and understanding,
Okay.
even when it's difficult.
So it's more about how we conduct ourselves,
Exactly.
not forcing them to change.
Right. Our discipleship
Mhm.
is about aligning our actions with our values,
Okay.
regardless of how other people respond.
I'm starting to see the thread here.
Okay, good.
It's less about what's happening around us
Yep.
and more about the choices that we make inside.
You're getting it, and that leads us perfectly to Sister 3.
All right, bring on Sister Sunshine.
Right.
What's her secret?
Well, she's not ignoring the challenges of life.
Okay.
She faces trials just like everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But her foundation is different.
Okay.
It's like she has this deep wellspring of joy inside her that's fueled by a connection to something much bigger than herself.
Okay. Now that you mention it, I remember he brings in
Yes.
that really powerful imagery from Lehi's dream
Yes.
in the Book of Mormon. With the tree, the iron rod, the mists of darkness.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a scary building too?
Yes.
Oh, it's all coming back to me now.
Right. Right. It's not like she's just, blissfully ignorant.
Right.
She faces trials, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
But her foundation is different.
Okay.
Like she's drawing on something deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like she has this wellspring of joy inside.
Okay, and he uses that to illustrate the challenges of discipleship.
Yeah, exactly. Like think of it this way.
Yeah.
So the tree represents God's love.
Okay.
The iron rod is like his word guiding us.
Mm-hmm.
And those mists of darkness.
Yeah.
Those are like the doubts and fears and temptations.
Right, those are the things that make it hard to see the path and to stay on the path.
Exactly.
And that spacious building is like the world, right?
Yes.
All those voices telling us to go for pleasure and popularity.
Yeah, the things that like look really enticing.
Right, and looks fun.
Right, it looks like everyone's having a good time.
Yeah.
But it's ultimately empty.
Yeah, you're not really being fed there.
Right, exactly.
It's just like cotton candy.
And so he's warning us against looking for validation in those places.
Yeah.
Reminding us that true joy comes from staying on the path, even when it's hard.
Yeah, clinging to that iron rod.
Right.
But what about those of us who haven't read the Book of Mormon? Like, how does that apply to me?
Right.
Someone maybe just kind of exploring these ideas.
Well, think about, like, what are the iron rods in your own life?
Oh, okay.
What are those principles or beliefs that are so core to you that you would hold on to them?
Right.
Even when people doubt you or ridicule you?
Yeah. Okay.
And what are those, like, spacious buildings for you?
Right.
Like, what are those things that tempt you away from what you know is right?
Yeah, the shiny things.
Yeah, that offer, like, easy satisfaction.
Right, but they don't really give you anything.
Right, they leave you feeling kind of empty inside.
Wow. This is making this so much more relatable.
Yeah.
I never thought about it like that before.
Yeah.
So it's not just like some religious concept.
Right.
It's about choices that we're making every day.
Exactly.
But how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
How do we cultivate that deep joy like Sister 3?
Right. Well, he offers this beautiful reminder.
Okay.
He says, never forget you are a child of God.
Okay.
Rich blessings are in store.
If you can learn to do his will,
Yeah.
you'll live with him once more.
Okay, I've always loved that quote. But sometimes it feels a little out of reach.
Yeah.
Like, what does doing his will actually mean?
Right. Like, how do I actually do that?
Yeah, like, what does that look like in my life?
Right. It's not about like blindly following rules or becoming some kind of perfect robot.
Right.
You know, it's about aligning our lives
Yeah.
with those core principles that we were talking about. Those iron rods that resonate with our deepest values.
So less about checking boxes.
Yeah.
More about living authentically.
Yes.
And finding joy in that.
And the beautiful thing is
Yeah.
that kind of joy isn't dependent on your circumstances.
Okay.
Like it comes from within.
Yeah.
And it's fueled by faith and hope and that connection to something bigger than yourself.
You know, this reminds me of when he
Yes.
talks about the symphony. He talks about making our lives a glorious symphony of praise.
It's like we each have our own song to contribute.
We all have our own part to play in that symphony.
And that song might sound different to everyone else.
Right. It might not sound perfect to other people.
Right.
It might even sound a little off-key.
Yeah. But that's what makes it unique.
But the beauty of it is that it's authentic.
Mm-hmm.
It's an expression of your love for God and for yourself and for those around you.
This reminds me of something you said earlier about loving your enemies.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm still struggling with that.
Yeah.
How do you actually do that with people who have hurt you?
Yeah.
Or who you just completely disagree with?
Right. And it's definitely challenging. And it doesn't mean that you condone their actions.
Sure.
You know, if they're doing something harmful, you don't have to be like, oh, yeah, that's great.
Right. It's not about condoning it.
Yeah.
It's just about like.
Right. Remember, it's about your choices.
Okay.
Not theirs. You know, so it's about extending compassion, seeking to understand where they're coming from, and then choosing to act from a place of love.
Okay.
Even when it's difficult.
I'm starting to see how this all ties together.
Okay.
If our worth is coming from something bigger than ourselves, and we're trying to live authentically and act with love, then that deep joy, it just kind of comes naturally.
Right. It becomes like a natural byproduct.
Yeah, okay.
Like those sisters.
Yeah.
You know, sister one surrendered her happiness.
Yeah, to all the outside stuff.
Yeah, to all the external factors.
Right.
Sister two got trapped in that anger and judgment. But sister three, she found her joy by choosing a different response.
Yeah.
A response rooted in faith. And love and that connection to her divine heritage.
This is making me think.
Good.
So it's not about pretending everything's perfect.
Right.
It's about finding that strength within yourself.
Exactly.
And letting that
be where your joy comes from.
That's where the true lasting joy comes from.
But what does that actually look like, practically speaking?
Right. Well, it looks different for everyone.
Okay.
For some people, it might be like deepening their spiritual practices.
Okay.
For other people, it might be focusing on service to others. You know, for someone else, it might just be making a conscious effort to see the good in every situation.
Okay, so it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Right.
But it's about...
Yeah, it's a personal journey of aligning your actions with your values.
Yeah, as we're talking, I'm realizing how much he talks about choice. We can't always control what happens to us.
Right.
But we can control how we respond.
We can choose our response.
Yeah.
We can choose to be victims. Or we can choose to find joy, even in the midst of challenges.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And it circles back to that idea of making our lives a symphony of praise. You know, it's about taking ownership of our happiness.
Okay.
And not letting it be dictated by external factors or the opinions of others.
Yeah.
It's about like recognizing our own unique song.
Yeah.
And having the courage to share it with the world.
This has been eye-opening.
Good.
It's given me a whole new perspective on this talk.
Good.
I'm seeing it less as be happy no matter what message and more about like a challenge to find that deeper joy.
Yes.
That comes from living authentically and being connected to something bigger than yourself.
Exactly. And remember, this is just the beginning. Like the real magic happens when we take these insights and apply them to our own lives.
Right.
You know, let them shape our choices and transform our experiences.
All right. Before we get too carried away, we've got one more part to this deep dive.
Okay.
I'm ready to hear what other gems he has for us.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So we're at the grand finale. What's that big takeaway he leaves us with?
You know, he doesn't actually spell it out for us.
Which I think is kind of brilliant. It's like he's inviting us to choose our own ending, to like write our own coda to this symphony of joy.
I like that. So it's not a do this and you'll be happy formula.
Exactly.
More of an invitation to make it personal.
It is. It's like, remember those iron rods and those spacious buildings?
Yeah.
He doesn't give us a list.
Right.
It's up to each of us to decide what those are based on our own values.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's empowering.
It's like, I've given you the tools now. Go make something awesome.
Exactly. And he reminds us that, you know, the world might try to make us feel ashamed for clinging to our faith.
Right.
For choosing a different path.
Yeah.
But true joy, that deep inner strength that comes from holding on to those iron rods, those core principles that resonate with our souls.
And that might mean saying no to some things that seem popular or easy, even if people criticize us for it.
Yeah. Right. It's about recognizing that true happiness doesn't come from following the crowd or getting external validation. It comes from aligning our lives with what we know is true and good.
So bring it back to those three sisters. It's like they each had the same potential for joy.
Yeah, they all had the same opportunities.
But it was their choices,
right,
their responses, that decided how things turned out.
It all comes down to how we respond to those challenges.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we're not just like along for the ride.
Exactly.
We actually have the power to choose.
Yes, we have agency.
Yeah, even when things are hard.
Even when things are really tough.
This whole deep dive has been like a journey.
Yeah.
I came in kind of skeptical, but you've helped me see this talk in a totally different way.
I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, it's not about being happy all the time.
Right.
Like 24/7.
Yeah, because that's not realistic.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's about finding that deeper joy that can sustain us.
Yeah.
Even when things are hard.
This has given me a lot to think about.
Good.
I think I might need to go back and reread the talk.
I encourage you to.
And maybe even look at some of those scriptures.
Yes, and for those of you listening, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Which sister did you relate to the most? What are some of those iron rods and spacious buildings in your life?
Yeah, what are those things that are really tempting you?
What can you do, even if it's just a small thing?
Yeah.
Shift your tune towards a more joyful melody.
This has been an amazing conversation.
It has.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
Well, thank you for having me.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.